I can tell you as a sales coach that one of the main reason why you're not closing your sales or you're not being as successful as you could be and closing your sales most of the time has nothing to do with necessarily your lack of skills around sales. A lot of times, unfortunately, it's around your perception of sales. And one of the root cause, even deeper around that, is your perception and approach and belief around money itself. So today's episode, we're going to dig a little bit of deeper around that subject of money. Now, this is a very broad subject, but what we're going to be discussing is some of the things that around your belief around money that may be stopping you, and some questions that you can take back home and review and ask yourself and see if those things may be your root cause as to why you are hesitant when it comes to asking for the sales and moving forward with selling. So if this is your first time here, welcome to the Godly Business Podcast. I'm your host, Anne Jean-Pierre, and in this platform, we discuss everything sales fundamental, business principles, all around godly principles. So if this is something that you find interesting, stick around, subscribe, all the good jazz. And yeah, I think you will find my episodes interesting. And yeah, so we're going to move forward in the conversation around one of the main reasons why you may not be as successful in sales. And it may not have anything to do with your lack of skills around sales. So this is the first thing we're going to talk about. So one of the things I've noticed in shadowing my clients is when I'm shadowing them, a lot of times I realize they may discuss the benefits around their product or service. A lot of times they discuss the features, not necessarily the benefits. But one of the things that I find that they never, not that they never do, but a lot of times they either hesitant or fail to do is ask for the actual commitment from their prospect, asking for the actual sale, asking to close the sale. And one of the reasons why that is oftentimes they feel uncomfortable around the subject of money. And asking for money becomes the block as to why they cannot move forward in their sales and closing the sales. So this is what I wanted to talk about is the subject around money. So there are 4 things that I want you to ask yourself and moving forward and be honest with yourself. I'm not going to be grading it or anything like that, but I want you to be honest and ask yourself those 4 questions and answer them and see if you are struggling with this viewpoint. And I will give you some tips on how to go around that subject based on a biblical standpoint. So I hope you will find this helpful. So the first thing is, like I said, is what is your relationship with money? Ask yourself that question. What is your relationship with money? How do you view money, right? A lot of times, some of us are raised thinking negatively of money. You may not think that you were thinking negatively of money, but I'm going to ask you this. When it comes to money, do you get stressed when it comes to the subject of money? Do you feel like you don't have enough? Do you feel like when it comes to having conversation around money, you feel like you're always lacking? Do you feel that having money is inherently evil? Having lots of money, having money or beyond your needs, right? Like all your bills are paid and you have a surplus of funds. Does that make you uncomfortable? Does that make you feel guilty, right? How do you feel about the subject of money? And sometimes we may have to go back as far back as when we were kids, right? How did your parents, the adults in your life, speak about money? Did they talk about money in a negative light, as in Money doesn't grow on trees. Like, I don't have all that money. Do they negatively talk about people who have money? Rich people? Do they have a condescending tone when they talk about that? So I want you to keep in mind those viewpoints, those conversations from way back then when you were a kid, right? And conversation around money seemed to be always negative or put in a light that's not the best. I want you to think how that could be affecting you when it comes to going for the sale, going for the getting that money, asking for the money. Because what I often find as well is that if you have that negative viewpoint of money, if you have a relationship where you think money is the root of evil, which is not biblical, by the way, right? I often hear it quoted like this, that money is the root of all evil. But what the Bible says is the love of money is the root of all evil, right? The love of money. When you put money in a position that it shouldn't be in, is when it come to cause you issue, right? And God says you can't serve two masters. It's either you serve God or you serve money, right? And oftentimes money becomes our master. So I want you to think, do you view money as evil, inherently evil? And if you do, subconsciously, you will tend to find ways to sabotage yourself when it comes to getting more money, when it comes to trying to promote yourself in certain way, when it comes to pricing your packages. I can't even begin to tell you how most of the time in conversation, I actually have to tell people to increase their prices because their prices does not reflect the value of the service or product that they are selling. And a lot of the pushback that I get is around the perception that it will be too much, right? It is going to be too much and that other people are not going to purchase it. Which brings me into the second subject, which is your focus on the money part itself and not the value that you get from whatever product or service that you're getting. And because of that, for yourself, it's hard for you to then, as an entrepreneur, sometimes showcase the value without the money. Here's what I'm gonna get. Here's what I'm getting at. I want you to ask yourself, and if this is true for you, it's okay. We're just exposing some of the things that may be hindering you from moving forward. Have you ever had a sales conversation with someone and they have not said yes, they have not said no, but your perception is that they're hesitant in making a commitment to purchase? And instead of, you know, asking the question, asking questions to dig deeper about their hesitation, you automatically start lowering your prices, automatically start discounting your product or service. Because in your mind, the value is in the money, not in the product or service that you're offering. So this is what I mean by your perception of money and how you focus on the money aspect of things is hindering you from making the money that you should be making. So going back to that conversation, then I want you to think what is your relationship with money and why do you focus so much on the money aspect itself and not the value aspect? So for that part, I want you to take whatever product or service that you are selling is to write down 5 of the values that your customers will get out of this product or service. And I want you to look at the value that you are presenting and how it will impact the life of that person. And then from that impact that it's going to have on that, said person, how do you think and how much do you think that person, including you, if this product was, you were selling it to yourself, how much would you be willing to pay for that product. This is the basis of where at least you should start, right? So when you're looking at it from that perspective, the value that you bring to your to your prospect or customer is where you should start, as far as like thinking of the price of it. So for example, if you sell a product, right, that helps toddlers or kids that has eczema, right? And this product actually does miracle for their skin. It reverses the issue. It just transforms their life. How much do you think a parent would pay for a product that's actually changing their kid's life? Do you think they'll be willing to pay $50, $60? Because in the prescription, pharmaceutical world, what they sell a lot of time are priced as those at those price point, if you will. And yet, if parents are trying these products and are willing to pay that much for these products and not getting the result, and you are presenting a product to the market that are fixing all of these things, that are addressing all of those gaps that these other products don't address, why then do you think that your product should be priced less than these pharmaceutical products? So that's one example. You are transforming someone's life. You are making their life better, and you are doing it better than the competitor. You can show the gap that you are covering that the competitor is not covering, and yet you feel like you are not worthy enough to price higher than what your competitors are pricing. And again, a lot of times it goes back to thinking, having a negative perspective of what money is. Money is neutral. Money is neutral. Money is a tool just like any other tool, right? So, for example, a knife can be used to cut tomatoes, and a knife can also be used to cut a person physically. The tool itself is not the crime, right? The knife itself is not the issue. How you use that is the issue. And so I think one of the main reason why you are not approaching the sales conversation and when it comes to money in the right perspective is because you are looking at money only from that limited vantage point. So that's one of the things I wanted to talk to you about. So after you ask yourself what your relationship is money, I want you to see if your focus in sales is around the money aspect itself when you are pitching, or if you are focusing on the value. If you are not if you are more focused on the money aspect, like the price, I want you to shift your focus on the value that you are presenting. And here's the thing, that also will help you in overcoming objections when people object to the price. Because one of the main thing that I get a lot is how to overcome objections. That seems to be one of the main main fear, and it is a fear around sales, is how do I overcome objections? How do I navigate objections? Stop focusing on objections so much. Stop focusing on the objections. I want you to focus more on having a conversation with the person. But that's a whole nother subject, right? In the conversation with closing the sale, if your focus is on the money, shift it to the value. As you sell the value to your prospect, the money aspect will not matter. And the reason why I say that is there are, let's take an example for a watch. There are watches that are $10. There are watches that are $50. There are watches that are a couple $100, a couple $1,000, and millions of dollars. There are ranges of prices for a watch. When you think about it, most watch do the exact same thing. Even smart watches, right? Most smart watches will give you the exact same information as a watch that costs $40 on Amazon that you could buy versus a smartwatch that costs $300, right? So All of them do the same thing. However, how they present the value, someone will value the $300 watch more than the $45 watch, even though they pretty much do the exact same thing because they are valuing different things, right? So in the same way, when you are presenting your product, the focus shouldn't be on you know, the money. It should be on value, what is the value that I'm bringing to this particular customer, and emphasis on this particular customer, because what I value is not what you value. So the same person selling me this watch is not going to have is not going to sell me the watch on the same benefits, features, and benefits to me as they are going to sell you that same exact watch. They have to figure out what matters to you so I can position my product or service directly to you based on your value. You see what I mean? So the focus a lot of time is too much on the money and not enough on the value. And that's one of the issues that you may be running into when it comes to not being able to close the sale. Now, the third thing I want to discuss and I want you to ask yourself is also along the lines of what we just touched on is, are you selling out of your own reality? Are you selling out of your own value system? And are you selling out of your own pocket? I see this so many times that it's annoying for me as a coach, right? And this is something I want you to drill in your mind and in your head. I see it mostly with newer entrepreneurs and newer people that are trying to get themselves on the market and doing those things where they are trying to sell out of their pocket. Meaning, what do I mean by that? Let's say you are launching a new product, a new pencil. Keep up with me here, right? And for you, what you can afford is a pencil that is $3. So therefore, when you create this product of your pencil, even though the price point for that pencil based on many different factors, right? We're not going to dive deep into pricing, but I have done a podcast before about what you should consider when pricing your products and services. But even though the pricing of this new pencil that you've created should be, let's say, $7, right? That's the right price point for that pencil for you to sell it. You are selling it at $3 because in your mind, where you are currently financially, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, whatever it is, right now, you could not see yourself paying $7 for a pencil. So therefore, you tell yourself, hey, as the product owner, as the servicer of this service, right? I would not pay $3 for this, not because I don't value it to be more than the $3, but I right now cannot afford $3. I see that so many times that you are not selling to yourself. You are, but you're not. That's another subject, right? You're not selling to yourself. So you cannot put your pocket where you are currently and saying that, hey, I'm only going to sell to people who can afford this price range, even though my product is valued way more. And so what I noticed again, you price your product lower than what it should be priced at. You also then, even if I finally convinced you to price it correctly, again, because of your mindset around money, you make it about the money. And when you are having a conversation with your prospect, your clients who may be interested in purchasing the product, the moment that you see them hesitate, you automatically start shifting to lowering your price to where you think they would be okay buying it. And so your perception and your viewpoint around money oftentimes is what is hindering you from making the sales goal that you should be making and going above and beyond what you should be achieving in your business when it comes to selling your products or service. So I want you to go back when you get a chance and write down what is your relationship with money. In what ways are you sabotaging yourself because you are selling out of your own pocket, out of your own, reality, if you will, right? Are you doing that? And then third, I want you to think, are you focusing on the money too much when you are doing your sales pitch, when you are presenting your offer, your product or service? Are you focused too much on the money versus on your product or service benefit to your prospect that's in front of you? So what are you focusing on? I want you to go back and ask yourself those three things. And then if you find that yes, you are doing those three things, that your relationship with money is more or less negative for the most part, right? That you are selling out of your own pocket, that you do focus on the money too much. Again, like I said, the first part is to write down the value of what you are selling. Write down the value of what your person would get out of your thing. I'm sorry, out of your product or service. Right? First. Second, change your relationship. Start to reframe, I guess I should say, your mind around money. One of the I hope I can remember it. It's a book that I would recommend you to read. It is by a Christian. It's called, hold up, let me look it up. Because I want to make sure I tell you the right thing. And I want you to see if you could read that book, because I do think it gives a lot of insight on what God's view is around money, around debt, around your relationship with resources, not just finance, right? Not just financially, but around resources. Because one of the things we have to realize is we own nothing. As Christians, if you have a Christian belief, you know that you own nothing. Let me see. I can't find it. My apologies, but it's literally a book that talks about your relationship around what money means and how you view money and how you should view money from a biblical perspective, how debt is a curse and all of those things. I know there's a lot of different people online who talks about debt, and you will find a range of views when it comes to that. But as Christians, I think our main guidance for anything in our lives, including the subject of money, should all go back to what God says about money and how we should move toward in handling his resource, which is money, right? So I hope this was helpful. Again, go back and write down those questions, and then write down the value that you bring to your customers. Focus on the value, not the money itself. Be honest on your view about money, and then ask God and pray to God for Him to reveal how you should be using your resources, your financial resources, how you should have, what view you should have about money, right? Because God talks a lot about money. And I think he knows he needed to talk about that because he understood the power that money have in our lives, right? We often work a lot for money. We spend a lot of our time for money. Money can oftentimes become our masters. And so understanding the relationship you have with money, whether negative or positive, and if money becomes a master in the fact that you constantly thinking about the lack of it, or you know how to get it from someone else. If money controls your mind, you definitely have to go back and pray to God and see what his views are on money. But when it comes to the sales conversation itself, those are the things that I want you to go back and think about it and face yourself and see where the money conversation can be hindering you and asking for the sale. And please, again, you could tell me all the benefits and values and all of the reasons why your product is the best. Unless you ask for the sale, most people will not just buy it. Some will, but your job is a salesperson. And I know most people have a negative view of sales, but if you're an entrepreneur, if you sell a service, if you sell a product, you are a salesperson and your job is to sell and close the clients. So therefore your job is to ask to close, is to ask for the sale. And for you to do that, you have to get over the hurdle and fear around the money conversation. So I hope this was helpful. I hope you learned a lot. Again, if you have questions, concern, you'd like me to discuss something, let me know if one of those subject is something that you found that you do. And how are you, if you have a different way of approaching them, leave your comments below. Let me know, have you come overcome those obstacles in your own business life. And so, again, you can ask me anything, but remember that God has the answer to everything. So he will counsel you, guide you, and teach you in the way that you should go. And that's it for me. You guys have an amazing rest of your day. August is right around the corner. So I hope you guys are ready for the new month. And I just pray blessing over you guys. I pray blessing over your business. I pray blessing over increased sales and your relationship with money going forward. All right. Have a blessed day.